everyone, and welcome to the Wealth of Health podcast. My name is Ahmed. I'm the Chief Exec of Echelon Health. With me, as always, is Dr. Paul Jenkins, Medical Director, endocrinologist, and consultant physician.
Hello again.
Today, we're talking about the most essential supplements for 2025. Paul, what supplements you think I should be taking to boost my energy, help me with my exercise and New Year plan, and just generally keep me well and energized?
I think the most important one, probably, Ahmed, is vitamin D. I'm a great fan of vitamin D, which almost all of us are deficient in. We live in the UK. There's no sunshine, and it's the sunshine vitamin, or very little sunshine. Many of us live or work indoors, and even if you do sunbathe, you're told to use factor, high strength sunscreen, which blocks production of vitamin D.
True.
So vitamin D, it has so many wide-ranging effects on the body. The immune system, and I passionately believe it's firmly implicated in your predisposition to, suffering with viral illnesses. And the thing I see the most of is long COVID.
Yes.
So reduces the incidence of that dramatically. It's got cardiac functions, it's anti-cancer functions, anti-inflammatory. So you need high strength vitamin D. And the recommendations I regard as almost homeopathic. The current NHS recommendations are 400 IU a day.
Really? Okay.
And I think, and you can measure it now. That's why it's, you can actually measure the amount in the blood and titrate the dose. And most people need 4,000 IU.
A day?
Yeah. I personally take 5,000 IU every day. My levels are just in the mid-normal range.
That's true. I also take like 20,000 a week or something.
You can take it weekly because it is a fat-soluble vitamin, so the levels go up very, very slowly in the body. And it takes many weeks to get to a stable level, and then you can maintain it. So some people take 20,000, 40,000 in Middle Eastern countries as routine, where they're covered up and get no sun.
Yes. So there was something I was reading the other day by a doctor. I think it was a blog or a podcast by a doctor for a very famous platform, a nutrition platform, if you would call it that. That says there's absolutely zero evidence and there's no need for us to take any vitamin D supplement at all. What would you say to that?
Can I be polite or
not? No.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be.
Bollocks. Complete rubbish. Yes. I mean, low vitamin D is, you get childhood rickets.
Right.
We've abolished rickets in this country because we're now taking vitamin D. It's why you used to take cod liver oil your grandmother gave you. It tastes disgusting. Very strong in vitamin D. It's much easier just to take a simple capsule. You can get vitamin D from some oily fish, but the amount in it is still relatively low.
Right.
And it's just so much easier and so available and cheap. Just take a high-strength vitamin D capsule every day, sorted.
Okay, in the morning.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But I'm a great believer. It depends on your personal preference.
Yeah.
I just believe, get your tablets, vitamins first thing in the morning, bam, get on with life. We're all too busy to wonder the exact timings of it.
Fantastic. So vitamin D.
Vitamin D is the first.
First thing I would take.
Next one, I'd probably say vitamin B, B12.
Okay.
Again, strongly implicated in the immune function, trying to boost your immunity and reduce inflammation. Chronic inflammation is now increasingly thought to be the underlying one of the root causes for so many diseases.
Right.
So B12, high strength B12, again, you can get it from easy capsule. Next one is less maybe well known, is magnesium.
Magnesium.
Magnesium. Magnesium, it's the fourth most prevalent iron in the body after sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium.
Okay.
And there are many studies showing that low levels are associated with many diseases.
Okay.
And we get magnesium from many food sources, and it's coming back to the same old ones, green veg. So green vegetables are high in it, and nuts and seeds are high in magnesium. Studies, particularly in America, show around 2/3 of the population have they don't get enough magnesium in the diet.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay. So I heard also it is good for the heart.
Yes, well, the diseases it's associated with are, it can be the heart, yeah. So not only furring up of the heart arteries, atherosclerosis, low levels associated with the increased risk of cardiac, we call arrhythmias, irregular heart rhythm, particularly atrial fibrillation, and that itself is associated with a significant increased risk of stroke. So you don't want to get into AF. It can be associated with high blood pressure.
Okay.
Yeah. It is associated again with inflammation. Yeah, and for the in the pancreas, it's associated with lower insulin secretion and increased risk of type 2 diabetes. So of low magnesium, clear evidence it is associated with increased frequency of headaches, of migraines. So it's an easy thing to take if you suffer with regular migraines to take magnesium. So there's some evidence associated with increased risk of stroke and epilepsy. Wow. So you can see it's, there's really quite wide-ranging effects of it. It's associated with osteoporosis, thinning bones.
Okay.
So
which also vitamin D helps with, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So I want to go back to vitamin B12 because there's B6, there's B12, there's B3.
Yeah, they often come as a B complex. So you could take them all together as if you wanted, as a B complex.
What do they do? What's their function of those B? I mean, do they already exist in our body?
Oh yes, okay. and in foodstuffs. All of these, I think, Ahmed, is about simple ways of topping up and making sure you've got the optimum levels. And if that requires you to take 3, 4 capsules in the morning, and you won't come to you won't come from too much. Right. And for vitamin D, you need a massive dose to overdose. So people say, oh, it causes high calcium and kidney disease. I've seen it maybe once in my whole career of vitamin D detoxification, and people are taking astronomical doses.
Right.
So there's a very wide safety margin between the dose you take, of what's available.
Okay. So vitamin D, B complex, magnesium. What else would you tell me?
Right. Then we're getting on to what I regard simple things you can do is diet and exercise.
Right.
Because these are, simple things which have a dramatic effect on your body and your predisposition to disease. So for diet, we all know our diets are increasingly processed. Yeah, the processed food, we really don't know what's in it. What chemicals have been added to it, the way the sugars have been incorporated, the high processed sugars, the hydrogenated fats, which give the flavor, which are like some of the fatbergs equivalent. If you put that into your body.
And we're even better than, like here in England, we're much better than places like the United States.
Yeah,
they will have a lot worse ingredients because there are certain allowances that the FDA, makes for certain ingredients to be allowed into.
It's possible
into the food.
Yes, but I mean, the UK is going. The way every developing country is. Yes, of this, and of course in the States, they're just used to vastly bigger portion size.
Yes.
So I think my thing is get back to simple home cooking, if you can. Yes, and then trying to wherever possible eat organically. So the chemicals the farmers use in the process of foods now. I met a carrot farmer a couple of years ago. I'm speaking to him about it, and he said he wouldn't touch his carrots.
He wouldn't touch his own carrots?
No, that were produced for a supermarket. He had to put 14 different chemicals on them to get them the right color, the right size, the uniformity of it that would be suitable for a supermarket.
I know. I don't know what's people's obsession with having a perfectly rounded fruit. Who cares?
Well, it's not when you start thinking of the chemicals and that have gone onto it. Yes. And we've no idea what these chemicals do. But we will do, I want to do another podcast about the food supplements and the so-called endocrine disruptors in the food chain and the things we ingest.
Yes.
But that's slightly digressing from this. So I think going back to simple food, cooking it yourself, avoiding the carbs, and especially refined carbs.
Avoiding the carb. What's refined carbs?
Refined carbs, so there's two types of carbohydrates, refined and complex. So refined carbs are the things that taste sweet, the pure sugars. So the cakes, the biscuits, the chocolates, the sweets.
What about rice and pasta? Is that?
Then you're getting into those are the complex carbs.
Okay.
So that's rice, pasta, the fillers, the North European fillers, rice, pasta, potatoes, chips, pizza, bread.
And we're saying both are bad.
Yeah, you want to, within moderation, but particularly the refined sugars, because they're so calorific for you. So I think if you can do those measures, and then I'm increasingly interested in the whole gut microbiome. So the bacteria within our backs, the trillions of them, which have been increasingly implicated in so many diseases, and trying to adopt a better sort of gut microbiome. And it sounds a little bit hippy-dippyish, but I do believe they are so important in many diseases. So having a regular probiotic, and that itself can be easily incorporated in your diet. Things like kefir, live yogurt or kefir. And you don't need much of it because, if you think of the rate at which bacteria multiply, just a small little dose, a shot each day is enough to start.
Sauerkraut.
All of that.
Kimchi. That's my favorite.
Yeah, well, all of these, they have been implicated and associated with feeling better, and many of them reducing disease. So I think.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be like another pill, because I when I look at probiotics, online, there's one that says, there's 7 billion bacteria, 200,000 bacteria, and I don't know what the difference is, or if that means anything.
Doesn't. I mean, no one really knows.
Right.
It's the sort of thing you can make whatever claim you want.
Right.
Yes, but just having a more natural bacteria in you, what's the definition of more natural? But coming from
live culture.
Intuitively to me, that's what I do, and that's what I believe. So the hard evidence for it, if you're really cynical, some of my medical colleagues will say, well, there's no evidence for that. That is true, but it's all, a lot of medicine is still, we don't know all of the hard facts about it. It just, what we do know is that our diet has drastically changed, and not for the better, over the last 30, 40 years. So it's trying to get that back. Yes. And then the last thing, I think the simplest thing you can do for 2025 to improve your health is just adopting a little bit more regular exercise. And this does not necessarily at all mean having to pay a fortune to go to the, one of the chains of gyms. It's just adopting it in your daily life. So working out where you can do a few more, step counts. Getting out the tube and stop earlier, or going for a walk at lunchtime, or not taking the lift, going up the stairs. There are always things that you can actually do that would, and it's been shown to make a dramatic difference, not only in the way you feel, but also in reducing the risk of so many diseases.
Okay, so in your opinion, if I take a vitamin D supplement, B complex, magnesium, exercise, eat as healthy as possible, because not everyone can just purely eat organic. Even organic is different than free range. It's it's just so complex at the moment. And we do that, and we incorporate probiotic in the diet, which is the natural cultures like yogurt, kefir, milk, sauerkraut, kimchi, all of that lovely stuff. That is a foundation.
I think that's a great foundation.
It's a great foundation. How many people do you think out of the 65 million who live in this country do that at the moment? And I'm not asking for a specific.
I wouldn't want to hazard a guess, but I do know that more and more people are aware of it, and ask for advice.
But would you say 50% of the country are?
I don't think so. It's not nearly 50%. No, I'd say more like 20, 25%.
25%.
But that's pretty much a very rough guesstimate.
Yeah, I understand.
But I think, but they're all relatively simple things you can do. I think the message is you've just got to think about it a little bit more, look at yourself, your own diet, your lifestyle, and think what changes, can I easily make that would be shown to be beneficial, and, and just put a little bit of time aside for yourself, and personal responsibility. Look after yourself a little bit.
Yes, and we're just about the time of the year now where most New Year resolutions are collapsing under their own weight, and
Yeah.
people are just falling back into their
Yeah.
usual habits.
Yeah. But I think this we can discuss again why the resolutions don't always last, but it's making a small change that you think you can stick to start with. Don't make complete dramatic changes because, and change your whole way that you've been living around, because you're unlikely to maintain that. Yes, but just, you can make small changes from the, start with the diet. Yeah, let's try and change the refined sugar intake. Let's cut snacking between meals to start with. Yeah, give that a go for 2-4 weeks. Once that's been established, and once you get used to it, then it becomes the norm. And then make another change. Yes, so little tweaks, over the next few months, I think you could make then all these things, you're looking for long-lasting changes. This is not a quick fix. This is, for many people, it's a fundamental change in long-term lifestyle you're trying to optimize and tweak.
And I think that's the key. People don't realize I can take a year to make a small change because I want it to last the rest of my life.
Correct.
People are like, I need to make the change right now, and I still need it to last the rest of my life. And that it almost does not happen like that.
Yeah.
If it's a lifestyle change, it has to be very gradual.
Yes.
And built up from tiny changes.
Small changes. Yeah, manageable little
That's
bits.
Essentially, we just discussed biohacking. That's essentially what biohacking is.
Okay.
It's those small changes over an extended period until you transform your whole health.
I'm very happy if that's your definition of biohacking. Very happy to say we've hacked our bio. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, specifically regarding New Year resolutions and why they tend to collapse right about now, we spoke to Dr. Farideh Banafshei, who will talk to us about what we can do to sustain them, make them last potentially a lifetime. Let's hear what she had to say. Delighted to have with us Dr. Farideh Banafshei, who is the founder of Harley and Chelsea Private Therapy and the clinical director of the J. Flowers Health Institute in London. Dr. Farideh, you also have interest and experience in working with adolescents, adults, and families facing a wide range of challenges, including addiction, trauma, identity-related concerns, and relational issues. And you also collaborated with leading universities, including King's College London and the University of Roehampton, and you also served as a guest lecturer at Imperial College London. Dr. Farideh, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm going to hand over to Dr. Jenkins to perhaps ask the first question about New Year resolutions.
Yeah, Farideh, welcome to the Wealth of Health podcast. And I guess, it's pretty topical at the moment. We are all usually swamped by the need to, or feel as though we need to make some New Year resolutions to improve ourselves, our lives. And I guess the first question I'd want to ask is, why do you think people have this need to make their New Year resolutions each year?
I think that's a really important question. I think in a general sense, for many years now, there's been this societal norm. It's almost like a collective expectation where people are symbolically wanting a fresh start. They're wanting change in their life. They're seeking something that can bring a sense of alleviation or a sense of excitement or just a sense of a newer version of themselves. And I think it's been this consistent kind of undercurrent theme where we as humans where we always think that we've got to improve ourselves, we've got to hit the new target, we've got to do something that we haven't done before, or we've done before we've fallen out of touch with. And I think somehow the New Year's date, the 1st of January, although it's an arbitrary date, we've added this immense meaning to it and an immense kind of sense of pressure to use it as a formal kind of pinpoint and standpoint to essentially adjust the self, and whatever that looks like in that essence. I think when we think of New Year's resolutions, we think of something like discipline, we think of willpower and the concept of willpower, and these things are really looked at and idolized, almost glamorized. They're they're really scarce commodities. If we are disciplined, if we have high levels of willpower, we're seen as really wonderful humans. We're great. We're, leading society in a sense. And I think that that in itself, the pressure that it creates becomes paradoxical in the human, essentially. But from my take, that's why we sit there and we assign so much meaning to New Year's resolutions, essentially.
I suppose, and I guess many of us maybe, or I won't be personal, have maybe overindulged over the sort of the Christmas period, and you've had too much of something, so it's easier to sort of slightly, in some extent, detox and start afresh, and to try again.
Yeah, completely, exactly that. I think we essentially we're living in such a fast-paced society. Everything is running at 100 miles an hour. When we're thinking about the healthcare world in itself, whether it's psychological, medical, it's consistently changing and adapting. If we're talking about this in itself, even if we use the example of AI and the technological advances that are consistently coming in and around us, we have such a we've got this, and this is a very generalizing kind of sense of looking at it, but we have elements of us that want to keep up to date, and so the whole year is so pressurized, and we're running at 100 miles an hour, and suddenly the holiday period comes around, and we give ourselves 2 weeks essentially to indulge in anything and everything that can possibly alleviate some of that pressure and alleviate some of that stress. So the Christmas period comes in. I know for my American colleagues it's Thanksgiving, and then it's all of these different holidays come in right at the end of the year. That essentially gives us a green card to do as we wish, that the whole year we've forbidden ourselves to do, to rest, and these are things that I'm saying are really kind of mundane human rights, right? Resting is and enjoying a meal or two is not something that's so otherworldly, but throughout the whole year we're quite constrained and pressurized. So then this period comes in, and then right immediately straight after is this kind of drive to fix this kind of this thing that we've been doing for the last 2 weeks, which is overindulge in whatever we haven't in the past year.
No, I completely agree, and you're right. I think that many, of us over the Christmas period, you let off steam, and we should be perhaps spacing those sort of activities and the simple things throughout the year a little more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
all.
I mean, so lots of us, and I think it's very common, make a lot of New Year resolutions. Yeah, but it's pretty common that we sort of don't maintain them. Yeah, and we default back to our usual situation. Why, why do you think that is? Because that's almost the crux of this, is why can't we stick to our New Year resolutions?
I think, Ahmed and I were speaking just briefly before, and it's roughly around 80% of people by February give up on the idea of their New Year's resolutions, whatever it has been, whether it's to get fitter, to start a new habit. And I think that the reality of half of it is that, emotional contagion is real. And I think we get caught up in the external influences, whether it's societally, whether it's culturally, whether it's whatever it is, the other outside of ourselves, that drives us to want to make these resolutions in the first place. And when the motivating factor is completely outside of ourselves, there's very little intrinsic motivational value as to why we would long term subject ourselves to changing our habitual behaviors. So, I know we mentioned the idea of dry January at one point. Taking that symbolically, what people are saying is, I want to be healthier, essentially, and I want to drink less, and maybe I've drank a little bit too much over the holiday period. But it's more about, well, if I look around me and the 10 closest people to me have decided to stop drinking for the month of January, the month of February, I feel this pressure to do it. I might not want to do it. I might not want to actually cut down drinking at all. I might drink moderately, and I don't need to do that in the first instance. But if my partner, my mother, my colleagues are all kind of in the office frowning upon the idea that I might want a drink after, on a Friday evening after work, I'm more likely to actually just give in to that. And what happens with the reality, the psychological subconscious component of why we give up, is that our internal compass is not is not linked to the idea of why we chose to do the things we've chosen to do as New Year's resolutions. And if we lack that connection and that alignment, we're far more likely to give up. We're far more likely to kind of put it on the back burner and say, well, I tried, I didn't really do it, didn't really work out. And it is slightly paradoxical because the intentions are pure, the intentions are great, but there's a sense of self-criticism, self-judgment, there's a sense of kind of really a lot of negative connotations that come off of the back of New Year's resolutions that are really linked to our external world rather than our internal sense of self.
Okay, so for my own selfish benefit, then, what would be your top 3 to 5 tips of what mechanisms can people use to stick to their New Year resolution?
I think allow yourself the grace to understand that you can always restart. So this idea of, using January the 1st as a starting point, that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful idea. The intentions are wonderful. I think if you what you're actually talking about is habitual change, and behavioral change takes an incredibly long time to put in place and actually work. It's a really big thing you're asking yourself to do. You're asking yourself to, depending on your age, the best part of a decade or two, there's a very automatic, intrinsic way of you being that you've been like for the best part of your adult life, and you're asking yourself to shift that. And the idea is that, instead of marrying yourself to the idea of achieving this huge thing or this huge goal, you start with smaller promises to yourself. You start with a way of being gracious and gentle with yourself. So instead of wanting to run, 10K a week, for example, it's the idea that you swap your morning coffee for a tea. And I know it sounds very basic, but it's the idea of swapping one drink for a soft drink. It's the idea of swapping one meal that's carbohydrate based to a vegetarian dish. It's the small promises that make a huge impact on how we understand ourselves, how we feel with our internal sense of confidence, our internal sense of an ability of achieving something. And these things all come together from our subconscious mind, and they come into the conscious awareness where I can do something, I can change something. And if you do, for any reason, lapse on what you've decided to achieve, that you allow yourself another date, February the 13th, May the 16th, November the 20th, even if it's the end of the year. Because the idea is that if you start to make these very small changes, your motivations become clearer to you. What we were speaking about originally in the start is this idea of marrying ourselves to something external to us, but you wanting to become fitter is perhaps linked to something that you felt like you've been lacking your whole life, and that might be towards your childhood experiences. And there's a real strong link psychologically as to why we want to achieve the things we want to. But if we kind of prioritize the idea of stillness and reconnecting to our internal world, these things start to become a bit clearer, and the motivations behind why we want to do something, when that is a bit more crisp in our mind, we are less likely to give in and to give up, and we are less likely to be so harsh on ourselves. We're less likely to critique ourselves in the way that makes us give up. I think I heard a quote once, and I really liked it. It was, "The psyche knows how to heal itself, we just have to listen." So if you think that there are New Year's resolutions we're making, there's a reason behind that. And it is not as fickle as I want to lose 5 kg. And I'm not saying that's a fickle goal, but it's linked to something. And if we are to pull that and understand that, we are far more likely to not give up and actually just persevere in order to achieve whatever we're wanting to. So I think that's what it is. Keep smaller promises to yourself. Add moments of stillness within whatever your working day or working month looks like, and try to connect your goals to an internal sense of understanding, an internal sense of value, an internal sense of being, and that will shift the way you actually look at what you want to achieve and hopefully guide you in a better way as well.
Would you say therefore, the smaller bite-sized sort of achievements are better than the grand sort of scheme, which we all know we're less likely to do.
It's 100% that. I think it's this all or nothing mentality that we apply to everything, right? It's we must achieve the biggest thing, we must do the largest thing, but actually the reality of change comes within the daily, mundane, small things that we consistently do. And then over time we realize that we've just, quit smoking. Over time, we've realized we've, gone for a health checkup and we wanted to shift our cholesterol, for example. It's not these large, humongous, kind of very big behavioral shifts that do that for us. It's the smaller things. And I think it is the bite-sized mentality, this all or nothing mentality cripples us essentially.
So maybe sort of for the alcohol, instead of complete dry January or after the first dry week when you've detoxed, maybe it's just sticking to start with, say, 1 day a week, and trying to, if you're used to drinking every day, is just trying that for, a couple of weeks, and once you get that established into your routine, and that's, I find myself that you've got to build it into a routine. Any change in your habit, because I have a very weak willpower. As Oscar Wilde says, I can resist everything except temptation. So, if there's always a reason to break it or not to do it, because it's a change which is, as you say, you're going against your whole lifelong, the way you've developed your personality or character. So maybe just forcing yourself or putting it in the diary. 1 day a week is the change of alcohol intake, or 1 day a week is a fixed day, is a little bit of exercise. And as you say, not trying to compete and do the math in this year, but just 1 day, just forcing yourself to go out and do a little, I often call it even a little joggette, just a shuffle, a joggette. Don't be hard on yourself, but just get it fixed in the diary, because there's always a reason at work why you shouldn't go to the gym or do exercise. Something always needs finishing. And as a good friend of mine, and he's made a good comment to me, which stuck with me, said, tomorrow there's always going to be work to do.
Exactly that. And I know now if I see you shuffling along, Paul, I know what you're doing.
Yes, that's my New Year little shuffle. And look, I'm at the age I'm not proud anymore. I don't care what I look like. I'm just, to be actually able to run or to shuffle it is a success. So,
No, I make a joke, but I think you've just said something wonderful. I think what we lack is the actual understanding of balance throughout our daily life throughout the year. And I think what you're describing is a sense of balance. You're saying, instead of giving up everything, instead of doing nothing, instead of going all in, you're creating this element of, I can moderately, and that sense of mental kind of, it alleviates a lot of the weight, the mental strain we put on the idea of achieving something. And I think if we kind of really start to just, instead of romanticizing this idea of all or nothing, start to look at the idea of just balance. What does balance look like for me? Because the quicker we learn that us as human beings, we are never really going to stop wanting to evolve, to change, to shift, to achieve, to do. And like you said, there is always an extra email to reply to, there is always an extra client to see, there's always something to do. If we stop thinking that once we achieve something we are going to get this thing that we're seeking, we'll start to learn to just let go of the emotional strain we put on ourselves that comes with this time of year, comes with all of these different New Year's resolutions. Introduce some balance into your life. It will really, really help your subconscious mind let go of these things.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Farideh. It's been a pleasure, and we are going to put a link in the description of your website in case someone wants to get in touch. Thank you very much for joining the Wealth of Health podcast.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank
you
you so much for having me.
Well, that was very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, some practical tips on how to keep at it and try to sustain those changes for as long as possible.
Very much so. Very, very interesting and helpful tips.
I know. So I think on that note, really, take your supplements, be healthy, work out, try and eat better, and we wish you all the best of luck for 2025. Keep up with your New Year resolution and don't give up on them. If you did like the episode, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so that you're notified when we post a new episode. From me, it's Ahmed. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you very much, and goodbye as well.